we're going to look at how to find the zeros, relative maximum, and relative minimum using a graphing calculator. So the first thing we're going to need to do is actually type in this equation into our graphing calculator. So start with y equals, and if you have something in there, which I do, you're just going to hit the clear button to get rid of it. Go ahead and type in that polynomial. So we have x, use our caret. I use my caret for squared. So type in the 2 plus 14x minus x to the 5th. So again, I use that caret to do all of my powers. I'm going to graph this thing so I can see what it looks like. And there we go. There is my graph. I'm going to be looking for zeros, and I'm going to be looking for maximums and minimums. So minimums are these valleys on our graph, and maximum are the hills, but I can't see the peaks of the hills or the dips in the valley, so I'm going to go ahead and change my window. So I need to go further up and further down on my graph, so I'm going to change the values of y. So I'm going to use my arrow keys, and I'm just going to go ahead and set this from -20 to +20, and graph it again, and make sure I can see the dips of the valleys and the hills for the maximums, and I can. The first thing that we're asked to do is find the zeros of the function. So you have something up here above the trace button that says calculate. So what we'll do is use our second button and the calculate button. And there we go. It says number 2, find the zeros. So type in 2. That's what we're looking for. And zeros are the places where our function crosses the x-axis. So another name for x-intercept is zeros. So your calculator is going to ask for a left bound and a right bound. So that is go to the left of that x-intercept and to the right of the x-intercept. And we're going to have to do this 3 times since we have 3 places where our function crosses the x-axis. So using your over arrow key, I'm going to start with the very first one. And I'm going to put my cursor over to the left of the x-axis. Now yours doesn't have to be on the same place as mine, just over to the left side of where it crosses the x-axis. And in this case, it's above the x-axis. So hit enter, tell it, yes, I've been to the left. Now it wants you to go to the right side of it, so using your right arrow key, go down. And now we're below the x-axis, or to the right of where it crossed the x-axis. So hit enter, and then your calculator asks you to guess. You don't actually have to guess, just hit enter one more time, and it will come up with a value. So one of the values for your 0 is -1.86637. And it'll look like that depending on what you were asked to round to. So like I said, there's 3 more places. We're going to do that again. Second, calculate. Option number 2 to find the 0. We already know the value of this first one. Now we're going to go to the second one. So remember, we'll read our graph from left to right. So the left side of the next x-intercept is below the x-axis. Once you're kind of over there near it, and still below the x-axis, hit enter. And then use your right arrow key to go to the right side of the x-intercept, or above the x-axis, hit enter. It asks you to guess. You don't have to guess. Just hit enter one more time, and it'll tell you our next value, or our next 0, is at x equals 0. Now, you might get something other than 0, like 1.99999 e to the -10. -10 means you take that decimal and you move it 10 places over to the left side, which makes it really, really small. So it's basically the same thing as 0. So when you see those e's, that's what they're talking about. We've got one more 0, so the same thing again. Second, calculate. Option number 2 to find the 0. And we're reading this thing from left to right. It tells us it wants to be on the left side of it. So there we are, right before we cross the x-axis. So hit enter, and then use your right arrow key. Now after we cross the x-axis, hit enter again. We're on the right side of it. And guess Just hit enter one more time. You don't actually have to guess. And it tells you your next 0 is at 2. So those are the 3 values for your zeros. The next thing that you're asked to find is the relative maximum for this function. So maximum means these hills. So we want to find the value of the tip of this hill, where that occurs. So go to second, calculate. And then there we are, option number 4. You can type in 4, you can use your arrow key to go down to 4. Hit enter, maximum. Again, we read this thing from left to right, so we want to get kind of close to the maximum, give it a small window to work with, but not too far away. So I'm going to go over to the left side of my peak. Just hit enter anywhere over there on the left side. And then it asks for a right bound. So use your over arrow key, go to the right side, hit enter. So what you're telling your calculator is, my maximum is somewhere between these 2 arrows. Please find it. It asks you to guess. You don't have to guess. Just hit enter. And it tells you the maximum occurs at 1.319544 and the value of the relative maximum. So this x value is where it occurs. This y value is the value of the maximum. So 16.238557. We're going to do the minimum value the same way. Go to second, calculate. Option number 3, minimum. Our minimums are our dips in the graph. So we want to find the value of this dip. It asks for a left bound, so use your arrow keys. Go over to the left side, hit enter. It asks for a right bound, so go over to the right side of that dip and hit enter. It asks you to guess. You don't actually have to guess, just hit enter one more time. And we have a minimum that occurs at negative 1.243 and has a value of negative 12.89191. And of course, round according to whatever it suggests. But that is how you find a maximum and minimum value in zeros using your graphing calculator.